An explosion rocks Beirut and nobody really knows what's at the cause of it still. Primary election results begin to flow in. Jill Biden says Joe Biden will debate Trump this coming fall. And gun sales surge during the pandemic in July. Once again, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. You know, with all the anti gunners out there and everything else that we've been seeing over the last few years, you would think that somebody would look up and see the fact that we have gun sales surging yet again, another month in a row, and they would come back and say, hey, maybe we're doing something wrong. I don't know. Maybe we should try something else because it does seem that people want to defend themselves instead of just bending over and taking whatever it is that we want them to take. But, hey, I just think logically. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but that's what I think here. But we've got a little bit to get to. Not as much of the ton as we usually do, but we've got a little bit to get to today as well. So, before we get started, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We've got my show. We have got Stephen Ignoramus. We have got The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, which will be returning after a 2-week hiatus coming up tomorrow. We've also got The Generational Gap, The Freckles and Brit Show, and The R-Rated Conservative. Come on over and check us out and pick up some of our swag and help us support great creators. I know that I'm going to be making some moves in my future here. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end. But I'm going to be making some moves in the future to try and make sure I get some more time to sit down, work with my creators, and see if we can't make the website what we want it to be, or maybe move it in a different direction, but definitely something to make sure that these people are getting taken care of, because that's the big thing. We want these people taken care of. All right, before we get into news, we're going to look at the Dow, which looks like it actually had a fairly decent day. It dipped below the close from yesterday at the very beginning because of the futures. And we saw the futures were sliding yesterday, but another 0.62%, which means we're eking out closer to that 27,000 mark again. In spite of the fact that we had economic shrinkage of 37%, we are eking closer to that 27,000, which means we're eking closer to that 29,000 on the Dow. I know it's not the economy, but it sure is going to help the people that want to retire this year. So we'll have a look at what the investors have to say about that. Dow Jones Futures signal stock market rally. Teladoc to buy Livongo. Square earnings are double surprise. Novavax whipsaws on coronavirus vaccine news from Ed Carson. So I'm guessing the problem that I'm having with IBD is that they want only the early traders who subscribe to them to have access to these articles. But after 7 o'clock, in the middle of the, or once the futures are about to be finalized, they'll just release it out to the public, because if I pick up IBD after 7 a.m. Central Time, it works fine. If I pick it up before 7 a.m. Central Time, they tell me that I have to be a subscriber. So that's just something to watch as I'm going forward off of this. Let's keep going here from Ed Carson. Dow Jones Futures rose modestly early Wednesday, along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures. The coronavirus stock market rally closed modestly higher on Tuesday, with growth stocks generally acting well. Walt Disney, Square, and Novavax were notable winners amid a busy overnight session. Meanwhile, Teladoc will buy Livongo Health for $18.5 billion, combining two telemedicine leaders. Have you guys ever used telemedicine? I haven't. I looked at the insurance, and now that we don't have the individual mandate, I kind of told my company to stick it, because as much as they're charging me for insurance that I can't use because it's a third of my income before I even have insurance coming in, it's not worth it to pay that money. I have to pay almost $7,000 out of pocket before I start getting stuff covered. That's not worth it to me. For as little as I go to the doctor, I might as well just pay it out of pocket. But that's just my personal situation. Teladoc Health will pay 0.5920 shares, or was it 59.20 a share plus 11.33 for each Livongo share, worth 158.99 a share for $18.5 billion based on Teladoc stock's closing price on Tuesday. Teladoc stock fell 4% before the open, surging to a record high Tuesday. Livongo stock jumped 4% after continuing to sprint. Higher in recent days, Livongo also reported better than expected results before the open. Dow Jones giant Walt Disney Square, would-be Tesla, rival Nikola, Twilio, Beyond Meat, and Enphase Energy were among the notable earnings reports after the close. Why is Beyond Meat a thing? If you're going to be vegetarian or vegan, why would you want to have something that imitates meat? I don't understand that idea. I should sit down sometime and actually ask Steffi Cole what the thing is, because she is vegetarian. I'm sure she would understand it and be able to explain it, but I mean, if you're choosing not to eat meat, I don't understand why you would eat simulated meat. Square delivered a double surprise. First, the digital payments leader released its quarter 2 report a day ahead of schedule, citing early external access of the company's quarterly financials. Second, Square earnings were positive, defying views of a decline. Meanwhile, Novavax stock had wild swings late Tuesday. Novavax released positive early-stage data on its coronavirus vaccine candidate late Tuesday, but an erroneous media report briefly stated that 8 patients required hospitalization. Novavax stock crashed initially, then turned sharply higher in a very active trade. Hey, get that vaccine, stick that radio transmitter in your arm, and make sure that the 5G can track you. Moderna, which is in late-stage trials for its coronavirus vaccine, fell modestly in the pre-markets as it reported better than expected quarter 2 results. Disney stock rallied an overnight trade on a surprise profit. Square stock soared, Twilio stock, Beyond Meat stock, and Nikola stock fell. Enphase stock retreated modestly, but after breaking out powerfully on Tuesday on strong SolarEdge earnings. Sometimes the best investing move is to make no move at all. Most growth stocks have been performing well, so there's no major reason to sell, and with many leading stocks extended or reporting earnings soon, there aren't as many clear buying opportunities. For the futures, Dow Jones futures climbed 0.5% versus fair value, with Disney stock giving a boost. S&P 500 futures rallied 0.4%, while NASDAQ 100 futures advanced 0.1%. Dow Jones futures paired gains after ADP employment record released 8:15 a.m. Eastern Time showed private companies added just 67,000 in July, far less than the 1 million expected, but June's gain was revised up to 4.31 million from 2.31 million. So, they gained more in June than they thought that they did, and yet they're disappointed over the fact that they only got 167,000 jobs in July when, once again, these idiot governors are coming out and saying, hey, thou shalt shut down, thou shalt not go to work. So, yeah, there's a few things going on with that. Remember that overnight trading in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So, that's what we have on IDB. A couple things that are moving, a couple things to watch today, especially if you have anything in your 401k, your retirement, or even in the stock market in general. Let's move on here and look at forbes.com, which is archived because they are horrible about their ad blocker. Dow Jones today, S&P 500 hopes for a second stimulus deal, U.S.-China tensions weigh, from Naeem Aslam. The S&P 500 and Dow Jones Industrial Average futures maintain their gains for the week and trade higher today. Investors are quite hopeful about the progress being made for a second stimulus package. There is also a tone of caution among investors in terms of buying stocks because of the reviews of the Phase 1 trade deal between the U.S. and China. Meanwhile, the gold price has smashed another record high. Stock futures are likely to remain sensitive to any stimulus-related news. There is no doubt that the U.S. economy needs more help, as the economic data is clearly showing that the recovery is stalling. However, the coronavirus stock market rally is still holding on to its gains, but the fuel seems to be running out. Another stimulus package could provide more fuel, and the U.S. stocks could make another record high. Republicans and Democrats are under pressure to resolve their differences over another coronavirus aid package. Steven Mnuchin, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, has indicated that a deal can be reached by the end of this week, and this is keeping the hopes alive among investors. Donald Trump needs to make sure that he sends one clear message. He is the toughest U.S. president for China. He doesn't care about the cost of this message. What matters for him is that the U.S. elections are around the corner, and Americans should know that he will still not bow to China. The U.S.-China Phase 1 trade deal, which took nearly a year, is set to be reviewed this month. The trade negotiators from both sides will be joining this meeting, and the progress of the deal will be reviewed. China pledged to increase its purchase of U.S. goods by $200 billion from its 2017 level. However, coronavirus has clearly made an impact on the purchase, and China is running behind by nearly $77 billion in purchases. The import of agriculture goods, something that Donald Trump was most proud of, and something that helped him to become more popular among farmers, is lagging the most. Then we've got Novavax data, which we read about already, upcoming numbers, which we read about already, and gold prices I just want to touch on here quick. The yellow metal gold recorded another record high today. The gold price climbed to $20.31 an ounce and then retracted to $20.22 an ounce at a time of writing this report. The path of the least resistance for gold is still skewed to the upside, and there's enough momentum that can push the gold price towards $25,000. Get your birch gold, folks. If gold's going up, it's always going to be worth something. Gold's always going to be worth something. Make sure you get your birch gold, and I'm definitely not just begging all my money off of birch gold. I get my money off the Daily Wire subscriptions as well, so get your mug. So, that's what we're seeing off of this here from Forbes. It's nice to move something other than CNBC and IBD every once in a while, even if I do have to take some time in archive, but definitely worth taking another look at everything here. Let's keep going. So, big news today that's already disappeared off the top headlines comes from around the world. Ammonium nitrate stored in a warehouse linked to catastrophic Beirut explosion from Helen Reagan, Tamara Kibawi, Ghazi Balkiz, I am butchering last names and even first names here, and Ben Wedeman from CNN. A warehouse storing thousands of tons of unsecured, highly explosive material has emerged as a possible source of the massive blast that ripped through the Lebanese capital on Tuesday, killing at least 100 people, injuring 4,000, and sending a shockwave across the city that damaged buildings and blew out windows up to 10 kilometers or 6 miles away. Lebanon's Prime Minister Hassan Diab said that the 2,750 metric tons of ammonium nitrate, which is typically used as an agricultural fertilizer, had been stored for 6 years at a port warehouse without safety measures, endangering the safety of citizens, according to a statement. It's still not exactly clear what led to the ignition that wiped out entire city streets across the seaside capital. Initial reports in state media blamed the blast on a major fire at a firecrackers warehouse near the port that likely spread to nearby buildings. However, the Prime Minister's account appeared to be backed by Lebanon's General Security Chief Abbas Ibrahim, who said highly explosive material had been confiscated years earlier and stored in the warehouse just minutes walk from Beirut's shopping and nightlife districts. Yeah. I want to say that some city planner is either been executed or fired, because that's probably not a good place to put that. Lebanese President Michael Aoun promised a transparent investigation into the causes of the explosion, vowing Wednesday that those responsible would be held accountable and face severe punishment. As Beirut's 4 million residents woke on Wednesday to the full horror and scale of the damage to their city, lives, and livelihoods, questions will be asked about why such large quantities of the dangerous chemical were allowed to be stored in the middle of the city without adequate safety measures, and who was responsible. Immediate concerns remain with casualties. Hospitals, already stretched from the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, are inundated with the wounded, and while the death toll steadily rose through Tuesday and into Wednesday, the true cost of life may not be known for several days as more bodies are pulled from the wreckage and the scale of devastation is realized. Relatives of the missing are scouring hospitals and looking for their loved ones, and aid agency Save the Children warned of children being among those unaccounted for. The Secretary General of the Lebanese Red Cross, Georges Ketina, told Lebanon's national news agency Wednesday that at least 100 people have been killed, saying the disaster is unprecedented and very large. The organization said that it has set up multiple temporary shelters with food, hygiene kits, and basic needs to receive 1,000 families who have lost their homes. Lebanon's health minister, Hamad Hassan, said on Wednesday that hundreds of people have been reported missing, and the death toll will likely increase. 4 hospitals are out of service because of damage from the explosion, he said, adding that the health ministry has an emergency plan with field hospitals being sent from Qatar, Iran, Kuwait, Oman, and Jordan. Hassan estimates that 6 to 8 field hospitals will be ready soon. So this is a pretty intense thing that went off of here. I know the article or the tweet that brought this up to my attention pointed out the fact that, I mean, the original tweeter said, well, there was a mushroom cloud, so this was atomic. Somebody dropped off an atomic bomb. To which most people in the world pointed out the fact that a mushroom cloud doesn't necessarily mean a nuclear explosion or an atomic explosion. I mean, I've seen a nitrous tank on fire that blew up and put a mushroom cloud up. I've seen that happen. If you have a big enough explosion, especially if it's got something to do with oxygen, you're going to get a mushroom cloud. It's just going to happen. And a shockwave if you go with it. So no, this is not necessarily by any means nuclear, but definitely something happened here. And not mentioned in this article is the fact that yes, this is the same chemical compound that Timothy McVeigh used in Oklahoma City back in the 90s. Only he only used a couple tons of it. This is 2,750 metric tons. This is more than a semi can haul. This is a lot of ammonium nitrate, like a lot. And once again, I don't know why it was being stored in the middle of a city. That seems like something that shouldn't have been, and it's been there for 6 years, but that definitely is something that should not have been in the middle of the city. So, once again, they're continuing to investigate right now over the fact that, yeah, nobody knows what caused this. The investigation is going to be ongoing. Most people are thinking that it was a fireworks factory, but our president has said that it could be something different. And in some way, I'm kind of maybe leaning the same way, but we'll see what happens off of this here from the New York Post. Trump says generals feel Beirut blast was likely an attack from the Associated Press to the New York Post. President Donald Trump said the U.S. military generals have told him that they seem to feel the massive explosion that rocked Beirut on Tuesday, killing at least 70 people, was a terrible attack, likely caused by a bomb. Trump was asked why he called it an attack and not an accident, especially since Lebanese officials say they have not determined the cause of the explosion. He told reporters at the White House it would seem based on the explosion. I met with some of our great generals, the best generals, and they just seemed to feel that this was not some kind of manufacturing explosion type of event. They seemed to think it was an attack. It was a bomb of some kind, yes. Trump offered condolences to the victims and said the United States stood ready to assist Lebanon. It looks like a terrible attack, he said. A Pentagon spokesman declined to comment on the matter Tuesday night, referring to questions back to the White House. The explosion flattened much of the port and damaged buildings across the capital, sending a giant mushroom cloud into the sky. In addition to those who died, more than 3,000 people were injured, with bodies buried in the rubble, officials said. The cause of the blast was not immediately known, but initial reports suggested a fire had detonated a warehouse at the port. Abbas Ibrahim, chief of Lebanese General Security, said it might have been caused by highly explosive material that was confiscated from a ship some time ago and stored at the port. Local television channel LBC said the material was ammonium nitrate. Witnesses reported seeing a strange orange cloud like that which appears when toxic nitrogen dioxide gas is released after an explosion involving nitrates. I don't know if I read that right or if that was just a grammatical error. Orange cloud like that, okay. So, we don't know what happened off of this. I know, like I said, the accepted narrative is the fact that it was possibly a fireworks factory going up, but yeah, I have no idea what this was. Nobody knows what this was, and hey, it's the Middle East. There is an equal chance that this might have been an attack as well. We won't know for probably quite some time as Lebanon and Beirut especially grapple with their deceased and their injured and trying to figure out where to go with and focus their efforts on the injured before going into the investigation. So we will see. I feel like this is going to come back up in the news. It's already buried at this point, but I feel like this is going to come back. All right. Let's talk about the people in D.C. wanting to spend your money because they love to do that. From CNBC, Democrats report coronavirus relief progress as McConnell says he is prepared to support a deal. From Jacob Pramuk, Democratic leaders left a meeting with Trump administration officials Tuesday, saying they're plotting towards a coronavirus relief deal. As the sides grind through a bevy of differences to try and strike to a relief agreement, Senate Majority Mitch McConnell, another major voice in the process, said he expects to back whatever aid agreement they reach. House Speaker Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Schumer met with Treasury Secretary Mnuchin and White House Chief of Staff Meadows for about 90 minutes on Tuesday. Speaking to reporters after the huddle, Schumer said, "We're making progress. We really went down issue by issue, slogging them through," he said. "They made some concessions, which we appreciated. We made some concessions, which they appreciated. We're still far away on a lot of important issues, but we're continuing to go at it." Entering the meeting, the sides appear to have resolved a few of the thorny issues at stake in the talks. More than a week has passed since Republicans unveiled a counteroffer to the legislation Democrats passed in May. McConnell, a Kentucky Republican, said Tuesday that opposition to pieces of a deal Democrats and the Trump administration craft may not stop him from trying to pass it in the Senate. "Wherever this thing settles between the President of the United States and his team that have signed it into law, and the Democrats, not insignificant minority in the Senate and majority in the House, is something I'm prepared to support, even if I have some problems with certain parts of it," he told reporters after the weekly Senate Republican policy lunch. Mnuchin and Meadows attended the meeting with GOP caucus. By Tuesday morning, the parties had come close to a consensus in only a few areas, such as extending funding for the Paycheck Protection Program loans for small businesses, so people in Florida can continue to buy Lamborghinis. An administration official told CNBC on Monday night, Mnuchin has said that Democrats in the GOP agreed on the need to send another direct payment of up to $1,200 to Americans, even though nobody knows where they're going to get that money from. But neither side had budged on plans for extending extra federal unemployment insurance or offering relief to budget-crunch state and local governments, among other topics. Negotiators have failed to crack the impasse even after the $600 per week jobless benefit and a moratorium on evictions from federally backed housing expired. The end of both policies put millions of Americans at risk of poverty or homelessness during an economic collapse. As the stalemate drags on, it appears unlikely that Congress can pass a rescue package before the end of the next week. Pelosi has told House Democrats she does not expect an agreement until next week, according to Politico. And I think this is where we're going to cut this one here because I do have more on Pelosi in the next article. But yeah, no, they're sitting here, they're arm wrestling over how to figure out how to spend your money that they don't have and they don't produce. They don't produce anything to make that money. You produce that money, but they still want to spend it. And spend it and spend it and spend it because that's what they do. So we're going to hold on to this one here for Monday and let's move on to CNN. Pelosi on the coronavirus stimulus price tag she's willing to settle for, $3.4 trillion, from Manu Raju over at CNN. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said Tuesday that she still wants a sweeping stimulus deal this week, but she made it clear she's not budging on the price tag put forward by House Democrats, reflecting how far apart the two sides are despite the days of talks. So I just want to stop it right there and say that Nancy Pelosi is once again withholding from the American people to get her agenda passed through. She can't concede on anything because it's got to be her way or nothing, and she's using the American people as pawns, just like she did with the government shutdown. Just like they did at that time. So, yeah. I hope you enjoy feeling like a pawn. Let's keep going. Asked if she has an idea on the price tag she's willing to settle for, Pelosi told CNN bluntly, "Yeah, $3.4 trillion. The price tag has been rejected by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who last week put forward the Senate GOP plan that would cost roughly $1 trillion, and is still fucking outrageous, by the way, and has attacked House Democrats' $3 trillion plus bill that has passed their chamber more than 2 months ago, and even some centrist House and Senate Democrats are squeamish about backing such an eye-popping price tag proposed by the Speaker. Pelosi, Schumer, Mnuchin, and Meadows have already met 6 times behind closed doors and are not near an agreement on a range of issues, including expiring jobless benefits and extending the expired federal eviction moratorium, according to both sides. At the 7th meeting on Tuesday, which lasted about an hour and a half, the two sides agreed to see if they can cut a deal by the end of the week, as the Trump administration proposed extending the eviction moratorium until year's end. Schumer and Pelosi said the Democrats made concessions at the meeting, as did the Trump administration, but Meadows emerged later to say that the Democratic concessions were minor, and both sides acknowledged far more work needed to be done. And there is a sharp disagreement about the scope of any deal, as the administration strongly rejected Pelosi's price tag. We're not going anything close to $3.4 trillion, Mnuchin said after briefing McConnell after his meeting with Democrat leaders. That's just ridiculous. But Pelosi, when asked if it's really feasible to get a deal this week given how far apart the two sides are, said Tuesday, "At some point you just have to freeze the design." Pelosi's comments come as anxiety is growing in the Senate GOP conference that the administration might sign on to a deal that lacks support of many Senate Republicans. While McConnell is getting briefed regularly on the talks, he has chosen not to join the closed-door discussions, saying President Trump is the only person who can sign legislation into law, so the White House should take the lead. So they absolutely want to come home and spend all this money off there. Once again, with the economy shrinking to the point that 37% shrinkage. And they wonder why we have to question where the hell we're going to get this money from. Money printer is going to have to go brr, and I'm not going to accept this second check either, because no. You don't have the money to send this check out. Absolutely not. You do not have the money to do so. There is nothing backing that up. My children's children are going to be paying for, like if I cash the check, I would use it to get the new desktop so I could run the business more effectively. If I cashed it, that's what I would use it for. So my children's children can be paying for me to run a business now in 2020. No, I can't justify that. I can justify a lot of things with the government, but I cannot justify that. But apparently a lot of people can. So we're going to hang on to that one here. Let's keep going down. A little bit more coronavirus news. Woman enraged at man not wearing mask at outdoor cafe allegedly throws coffee in his face, from Hank Berrien. According to the video at TMZ, 2 men were sitting outside a coffee cafe in Manhattan Beach, California, when a man and a woman walked by, and the woman allegedly criticized them for not wearing masks. One of the men called out, "What are you looking at me for? I didn't say shit to you. Get the fuck out of my face." The woman then apparently hurled her coffee at the man, prompting him to jump up and run after the couple, punching the man. The man off screen said to the woman, "You shouldn't have thrown the drink in his face." She replied, "I don't give a fuck." The man who had the drink thrown in his face retorted, "You do now," the off-screen man repeated. "You should not have thrown the drink in his face. That was stupid." Later, someone addressed the couple saying, "What you needed to do, you needed to walk away," the coffee victim said the man he hit, who was now on the phone. "What are you going to do? Tell the cops you threw coffee at me?" Meanwhile, the man accompanying the woman can be heard saying, "Hello, 911. I've just been assaulted on Manhattan Beach Avenue. 2 gentlemen. The man off-screen commented, "2 gentlemen?" The man phoning 911 continued, "1 gentleman and his accomplice." The man off-screen laughed, "You need to get your story straight. Your significant other here, your wife or your girlfriend, she threw a drink in his face and assaulted him." Referring to the coffee, he continues, "That's hot. You know that, right?" Later, "There's coffee all over your boyfriend." The woman replied, "'Cause you were punching him." The coffee victim addressed the man on the phone saying, "You're going to show coffee all over you because your stupid girlfriend threw it on me." Later he addressed the couple, as the man on the phone can be seen with a bloody nose, and says, "We were sitting here eating our burritos and you stopped and accosted us and threw coffee at me. You're going to have a hard time explaining this." So, yeah, that's just some more mask stupidity, because people can't leave well enough alone. Management will come out, and first off, it's outdoors. That's the first thing you have to remember, and there's next to no visible transmission of people going and having any of this come out outdoors. It's mostly transmitted, studies have found, through enclosed areas with a lot of air conditioning and a lot of cooling. Which is why I think that some people are trying to do the indoor mask mandates, which are still unconstitutional, but I can understand why people are doing them. But yes, let the management deal with it, especially if it's outdoor at a cafe when people are eating. This is just ridiculousness at this point, folks. But that's what we're going to see out of this. So I've got one here from The Independent, which I don't normally use because they don't have green check verification, but I did want to just go through this because this is something that I've been saying for a while now. I know Poole's been saying it. I know other commentators have been saying it as well. So this is something, and now the Trump administration is going to come out and say the same thing at this point. So from the independent.co, Dave McClain writes, Trump claims 2020 election results may not be known for years. Donald Trump has claimed that some states' elections results may not be known for years as he continued to rage over Nevada's plan to send absentee ballots to all active voters amid the COVID crisis. The president continued a fume Wednesday morning, tweeting that Nevada has zero infrastructure for mail-in voting. It will be a corrupt disaster if not ended by the courts. He added that it will take months or years to figure it out. Excuse me, I have hiccups again, I'm sorry. He doubled down on the claim about 30 minutes later during a telephone interview with Fox News. The Trump campaign filed a lawsuit on Tuesday against Nevada's major expansion of mail-in voting. The RNC has a vital interest in protecting the ability of Republican voters to cast and Republican candidates to receive effective votes in Nevada elections and elsewhere, the lawsuit said. More follows. I don't see where it follows, but more apparently follows. Anyway, yeah, that's something that we're going to see for a while. I mean, there are still ballots sitting in Milwaukee that nobody's counted. Nobody knows who actually won in the state of Wisconsin based on Milwaukee at this point. They just called it for Biden and everybody else off here. For Kurofsky over Dan Kelly, that was the other big race that was happening here. But there's still ballots that need to be counted. And nobody knows how to get this done and taken care of. Ballots are being rejected left and right. And this is a relatively small state. Imagine what's going to happen in a place like Nevada, California, if they're all mail-in, full mail-in ballots. New York, all these places that are definitely going to go full mail-in ballot. We are not going to know who won by the end of election night. There's no way. I'm willing to say that we're not going to know who won by Inauguration Day. There's no way. We're going to sit down and have court battles go back and forth constantly for the next 4 years over who won the 2020 election. And nobody's going to know. Judges are going to weigh in. People are going to be sued left and right. Nobody's going to know what happened come election day. It's just going to be chaos, but that's what the last 4 years were as well. So strap in because we're going to have to get used to it. All right, another one I don't usually use, Vanity Fair, archived because of their ad blocker status. Is America ready to wait for the 2020 election results? From Charlotte Klein. News executives and TV anchors have begun to prepare for the public for the likelihood that the election won't be settled in a night, as is traditionally the case, but it could take a week or several to wrap up given the expected increase in mail-in ballots due to the pandemic. Sally Busby, executive director of the Associated Press, told CNN's Brian Stelter that her organization's goal is to be clear and factual and transparent in determining the winner. One of the things we need to be very cautious about is this year is that if the early vote shows one trend and then later that changes, that's also not a sign of fraud, said Busby. President Trump suggested as much in 2018 when a Democrat Senate candidate pulled ahead of her Republican opponent. That could be just different groups of voters in the state voting at different times and their votes being counted at different times. Busby said, adding, people who vote ahead of time and people who go to the polls may be different types of voters. Busby noted that Washington and Oregon have run clean, successful elections with all absentee and mail-in voting in the past, but there will be more states dealing with this kind of voting this year because of the coronavirus crisis, some with minimal experience processing votes by mail. That means results will probably be tabulated slower. The AP is doing an enormous amount of research to make sure that we understand how each state is going to handle its elections. Information, Busby said, will allow them to pull together that vote and gather what has been reported for those relying on the outlet's account, and in our very decentralized system, many do. So yeah, we don't know what's going to happen come November 5th. Nobody's going to know. Absolutely nobody's going to know. And it's going to be chaotic. I think there's going to be chaos in the streets, especially if Trump pulls ahead. And there's going to be just massive, massive pushes to try and get that vote count padded to make sure that Biden wins this. I don't trust any of this right now. Not a single thing, especially with the fact that they're trying to change technology at the last minute to try and get something done. You would be better off to delay the election until after the crisis. You would be better off to do that. But nobody knows. And one of the big things is that if we have to throw the election out because nobody knows what's going on and we can't verify the results of anything, Trump wins. If we have to throw it out, it goes over to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, by the Constitution, would kick it back to the House. And while the House has a majority, the House delegation, in relation to the Electoral College, has the majority that way. Which means that, yes, Trump wins coming up in 2020 if they have to throw it out. And there will be chaos. It will be illegitimate election all over again. So this is something we do need to watch for. All right. A little bit of election news here. I thought I had Arizona's in here too. I guess I didn't. Maybe I closed the wrong one instead of that Vanity Fair article. Anyway, from the Times Herald, Michigan primary election 2020. Follow along for live updates as the results come in across St. Clair County from Jackie Smith. Updates continue in the morning. 97.73% of St. Clair County precincts reporting 21 of 31 in Sanilac. So they're doing live updates right now. Michigan had their election, or their primary this time. So we don't know. I'm kind of interested to see, and I wanted to put this up here, but it doesn't look like we have much of anything at this point, just the counts. But I kind of wanted to see where Rashida Tlaib popped in off of this. Let me see if I can find this in here. No, it doesn't look like it's going to be... Doesn't look like it's going to be readily accessible, but yeah, I want to throw this in here. We'll be watching Michigan and Arizona just to see what happens off this, and once again, I'm very interested to see what happened with Tlaib, because we see that Omar is going to be sunk, most likely with the fundraising out there. AOC actually won her primary, and yeah, I kind of want to see what Tlaib does. So we'll move on off of this one here. Let's keep going here. Protest leader Bush ousts 20-year U.S. Rep. Clay in Missouri. From Summer Ballantine. Cori Bush, a one-time homeless woman who led protests following white police officer's fatal shooting of a black 18-year-old in Ferguson, ousted longtime Representative William Lacey Clay in Tuesday in Missouri's Democratic primary, ending a political dynasty that has spanned more than half a century. Bush's victory came in a rematch of 2018 when she failed to capitalize on the national Democratic wave that favored political newcomers such as Bush's friend, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But this time around, Bush's supporters had protests over the death of George Floyd in police custody in Minneapolis and outrage over racial injustice finally pushed her over the edge. An emotional Bush, speaking to supporters while wearing a mask, said few people expected her to win. Yeah, I didn't expect it. They counted us out, she said. They called me. I'm just the protester. I'm just the activist with no name, no title, and no real money. That's all they said that I was. But St. Louis showed up today. Bush's campaign spokeswoman, Keenan Korth, said voters in the district were galvanized. They're ready to turn the page on decades of failed leadership. Korth said. Bush, 44, also had backing from Political Action Committee's Justice Democrats and Fight Corporate Monopolies this election. She campaigned for Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders during his presidential bid. Bush's primary win essentially guarantees her a seat in Congress representing the heavily Democratic St. Louis area. Missouri's first congressional district has been represented by Clay, or for his father, for half a century. Bill Clay served 32 years before retiring in 2000. William Lacey Clay, 64, was elected that year. Clay didn't face a serious challenger until Bush. This year he ran on his decades-long record in Congress. This election is a simple choice, Clay said in a Monday statement. Cori Bush's empty rhetoric or my record of real results and real reforms for the people. Both Clay and Bush are black, and black residents slightly outnumber whites in the district that includes St. Louis and North St. Louis County. Bush became ill while pregnant with her second child in '01 and had to quit her job at a preschool. When she and her then husband were evicted from a rental home, the couple and their newborn and 14-month-old son lived out of a Ford Explorer for several months. Eventually, the couple divorced. Bush earned a nursing degree. She also became a pastor. So that's a little bit, and now we're going back on to what happened way back in 2014 with all of this. And once again, I am always interested in people coming in and ousting longtime senators. That is a part of draining the swamp, even if I don't agree with the person who's ousting. Freshman politicians, getting people out of their careers, are, I think, a net benefit to the country. Even AOC, as much as I disagree with everything that she says. Ousting Joe Crowley, who was running on nothing, sent a message out to the people that says, hey, you can do this. You can get up and run. You can oust these people if they're not representing you. So if you are interested in politics at all, go look and see who's a weak incumbent that you can come in a primary. Go up and absolutely look for that, because you might be the next AOC. You might be the next squad member. And hey, you might be the next Dan Crenshaw. Who knows? You've got the opportunity. So, let's keep going in off of this here. I've got one archived from the Washington Post. Republicans consider South Lawn of the White House for Donald Trump's convention speech. From Michael Scheer and Josh Dawsey. Republican National Convention planners are considering the White House South Lawn as the site of President Trump's nationally televised nomination acceptance speech later this month, according to a Republican familiar with the discussions. The decision to stage the most high-profile political event of Trump's re-election campaign at the national seat of presidential power would be just the latest break by Trump in presidential norms, which have historically drawn clear lines between official business of the president and campaign events. People involved in the planning said that no final decision has been made on the location of the Republican convention's celebratory events. Trump abandoned plans to hold the full convention in Charlotte and later Jacksonville over concerns of large crowds could spread the novel coronavirus. The South Lawn, which can be subject to intense heat and afternoon thunderstorms in late August, is one of several sites under consideration for the week of festivities, including the Trump International Hotel in D.C., which the president leases from the federal government, officials said. Any costs incurred by the government to host events would be repaid, said the Republican, who, like others, spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss internal deliberations. Several hundred Republican delegates plan to gather for a pared-down session of official meetings on August 24th in Charlotte to nominate Trump. That will be followed by 3 more days of speeches and programming from undetermined sites, culminating in Trump's acceptance speech on August 27th. So they're coming out here and they're calling this the Hatch Act, and another Hatch Act violation because, oh, well, he's going to use the White House to do campaigning, and that's the Hatch Act, which, I mean, he came out and gave a speech, and they called it the Hatch Act because he looked forward to what he wanted to do in the next 4 years. The Hatch Act is one of these other obscure laws that's never been prosecuted, or rarely been prosecuted. It's just like the Logan Act, but yes, they're digging deep into the law books to try and find something that they can hit this president on. But yeah, that's how this came to my attention, and I don't know where it's going to be, but it's probably not going to be on the South Lawn. Let's keep going here. From the Daily Wire, Biden walks back claims of taking cognitive tests, rambles about cocaine during a bizarre interview, from Ryan Saavedra. Presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden said during a bizarre and at times contentious interview on Wednesday morning that he has not taken a cognitive test, despite claiming in the past that he has. "Have you taken a cognitive test?" the host asked. "No, I haven't taken a test," Biden shot back. "Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man. That's like saying before you got in this program, you have to take a test whether you're talking or taking cocaine or not. What do you think, huh? Are you a junkie? What do you say to President Trump, who brags about his test and makes your mental state an issue for voters?" the host pressed Biden, or as Biden laughed. "Well, I can't figure out the difference between an elephant and a lion. I don't know what the hell he's talking about," Biden responded. "Did you watch that? Look, come on, man. I know you're trying to goad me, but I mean, I'm so forward-looking to have an opportunity to sit with the president or stand with the president in debates There's going to be plenty of time. And by the way, as I joke with him, I shouldn't say it. I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't say. Biden concluded. Anyway, I'm very willing to let the American public judge my physical and mental my physical as well as my mental fitness. Yeah, this is elder abuse, people. Just let the guy go and retire. Find somebody else that you can possibly run off of this at this point, because there's no way that this is even going to be a viable option. I mean, the only reason he's viable right now is because he's not Trump, but yeah, that's what it's going to be. All right, let's keep going here. From Fox News, Jill Biden promises her husband will debate Trump this fall, is close to choosing a running mate. From Talia Kaplan. Presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden is close to making a decision on a running mate, the former vice president's wife told the Daily Briefing on Tuesday. Jill Biden also told host Dana Perino that her husband will share the debate stage with President Trump this fall, shrugging off suggestions by former Clinton White House press secretary Joe Lockhart and others that Biden skip the events. Oh yes, he will debate, Jill Biden responded. I think there's 3 debates that they decided on, so yeah, he will be there. Do you think it's unhelpful for other Democrats to suggest that Joe Biden shouldn't debate the president? Perino asked. No, I didn't even realize that Lockhart had written the article, Mrs. Biden said. Joe will make up his own mind. Perino then asked Biden to respond to Trump's claim during an interview with Fox News' Chris Wallace last month that her husband can't put 2 sentences together, a reference to the former vice president's gaffes on the campaign trail. Trump went on to claim that Biden is not competent to be president. To be president, you have to be sharp and tough and so many other things. He hasn't even come out of his basement. Joe is anything but that characterization, Jill Biden told Perino. We've been campaigning. We've been listening to the experts, the scientists and the doctors, and they have told us, stay home and be safe. Donald Trump is really about Joe's age, she added. I think there's 2 or 3 years difference between. Trump is 74 years old while Biden is 77. So it's surprising that he would say that Joe wouldn't be up to it and made those comments. Perino then asked the one-time second lady to respond to the new Trump 2020 campaign manager Bill Stepien, who described Joe Biden as an empty vessel of the radical left. Your husband said that he would be the most progressive president, the host said, and I wonder how you see Joe Biden fitting into the Democrat Party, as it is in 2020. Joe is moderate, and that doesn't mean that his ideas aren't progressive and bold and forward-thinking, Biden's wife said. But he's not someone who's left. He's not someone who's right. He's a moderate, and that's who he's always been. No, he's an empty suit at this point. So, yeah, this is the interview that they had off there. And there's going to be a debate. I cannot wait to see it. And I'm sure most of my audience here is on the same point. They definitely want to go and see this. I want to live stream the debates. I really do. So I'm definitely hoping that this new change in career that I hopefully see coming up in the near future allows me the time to do so, because man, I want to live stream those. I want to sit down with you guys and watch this together and let you guys comment on it. We'll probably only do it on DLive because I'm sure that YouTube will shut it down immediately for copyright infringement. But yeah, we'll probably do that as well. So man, I hope I get to do that. I hope to God I get to do that. All right, let's keep going. Come on. There we go. From the Daily Wire, civil rights attorney, Democrats believe every black man has to vote for them. They do not own me. From Paul Bois. Civil rights attorney Leo Terrell has had enough of the Democratic Party's racial politics, which he characterized as every black American being expected to vote for them or face being deemed a race traitor. Speaking with Sean Hannity on Tuesday, Terrell said he will be voting for President Trump because the Democratic Party honestly believes that every black man has to vote for them and that they own us. Leo Terrell asserted his independence from the Democratic Party, saying, "They do not own me. Over 1 million blacks voted for Trump in 2016. There are going to be twice as many in 2020. As to why he believes so many more black voters will flock to Trump in November, Terrell said the school choice will be a deciding factor. The Democrats will not allow black kids school choice vouchers, he said. It's outrageous. It's the #1 civil rights issue, school choice and vouchers, and we've got to change that." Yeah, that's a big thing that I'm actually interested in is, I mean, some of these schools in the inner city are absolutely horrible. I've seen the education that comes out of them. I've seen the fact that teachers don't give a fuck if they're in some of these schools. They don't care. So giving some of these kids, even 10% of these kids, the opportunity to get out of the inner city, to go to one of the private schools in the suburbs, like get out of Milwaukee and go to West Dallas or something else like that. I can see. And going to work with teachers who care and who aren't beholden to the teachers union or aren't just there because they're getting a paycheck and don't care what happens to any of this. I think that would be incredible. I actually used to date a school choice teacher. And while we had very, very big differences in other things, I knew that she cared. She cared for her students. She gave them attention to a point that they didn't get when they were going to some of these schools closer to downtown. And we need to give more people the opportunity to have that. So yeah, if that's the issue coming down at this election, that's going to be huge. That is going to be huge to break the Democratic stronghold on the black community. All right. According to Fox News, Terrell referenced comments made by former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice on Tuesday, where she told Peter Baker of the New York Times that the Aspen security firm that a problem of the left is telling black people how to think. I don't really care if we're colorblind, but I would like to get to the place that when you see somebody who's black, you don't have preconceived notions of what they're capable of, who they are, by the way, what they think, which is, I think, a problem of the left, Rice said. You look at somebody who's black and you think that you know what they think, or at least think you know what they ought to think. So yeah, this is actually going to be huge, and I know that this was coming up. I do think that this is a part of the reason that we're seeing the George Floyd protests in the way that we do. And for the most part, we're just seeing yuppie little white kids in the George Floyd protests at this point. Yeah, we had a little bit of an instance in the beginning where BLM was coming out and trying to push all black lives out there, but for the most part, a lot of the Antifa stuff and a lot of the anti-government stuff that we're seeing is white yuppie kids who are protesting in the name of George Floyd because they have to tell their black counterparts how to think and what to think. And you know what? Vote the way that you feel, not the way that you're told to vote. That's the reason I'm not voting for a president this year, is because I cannot get behind any of the individuals who are running for president this year. I'm open to have my mind changed, but as I'm looking right now at their platforms and the people that they are, I cannot. If you can sell them to me, I might think of it, but no, it's not going to happen. But that's what we're seeing off of this here. It was an interesting little take that we have here. We've just got a few more, and then we will do something I'm thankful for and get on out of here. LA ballot measure would shift nearly $900 million away from law enforcement. Report from Fox News from Bree Stimson. The LA County Board of Supervisors Tuesday voted to include charter amendment on the November ballot that would redistribute $880 million from law enforcement to community programs. The money would come from the county's unrestricted general funds, according to Fox 11 in Los Angeles. The board voted 4-1 to include the amendment called the Reimagining LA County, which would permanently move 10% in general funds from law enforcement to programs like housing, mental health services, and other programs aimed at alternatives to jail, Fox 11 reported. As well as the police and sheriff's departments, the funds would also be restricted from use in the district attorney's office or the courts. The funding shift would be phased through 2024, according to LA Street's blog. Supervisor Catherine Barger, who said the vote was rushed and lacked transparency, explained she opposed the measure because it would hurt the county in a bad economy, lead to county job cuts, and restrict future boards, Fox 11 reported. Yes, let's go ahead and make it harder for people to get a job because, yeah, they're going to be looking for police officers and trying to recruit. And yes, this is a political stunt at this point. Oh, no. We want to defund the police because they're evil. Well, continue to do so and then wonder why people flee your state like Elon Musk and Joe Rogan. And there's a reason I'm going to get my real estate license right now because I'm looking at a lot of flight from a lot of these places. And I do hope that the people come out of these places and leave their voting behind because it's what ruined them in the first place. But yeah, this is going to be the thing that drives down life in New York. And remote work, which we saw during the coronavirus pandemic. And I talked about that way before. Remote work is also going to change the way that we do things. And it's going to lead people to come out into the middle of the country and build businesses. But even if they don't build businesses, if they just build houses and then remote work. You can work in New York from anywhere. Hell, my co-host and I have never been in the same state, as far as I know, at the same time. You can work together without having to be in the same room anymore. So yeah, we're going to see a lot of flight from these areas. And I'm interested to see how it happens. All right, let's keep going here from the Hill. Gun sales surge during pandemic, with July seeing record background checks from Heiress Folly. This is just... They take the same article, rewrite it, and change the month in it. It's got to be, because we see this month after month at this point. But let's see what Heiress Folly has to say. Gun sales in the country have surged in recent months amid the coronavirus pandemic, with last month seeing a record number of background checks for the month of July, CNN reported on Monday, citing recent data released from the FBI. The new figures show more than 3.63 million firearm background checks were carried out by the agency last month, a number CNN reports is the third highest on record. Yeah, that's always interesting to see. We had a record number of gun sales in March. That was blown away by a record number of gun sales in May, which was blown away by a record number of gun sales in June, which was blown away by a record number of gun sales in July. From March to July, the agency completed a total of over 17.3 million from the new data. The agency has completed about 11.7 million background checks over the same 5-month span last year. The FBI has been performing background checks on potential gun buyers through its National Instant Criminal Background Check System since its launch in 1998. The system carries out the checks, which looks at the buyer's criminal history and other qualifications required for eligibility. When a person attempts to purchase a firearm from a seller with a federal firearms license. The sales surge comes as the nation continues to grapple with the coronavirus pandemic, as well as ongoing protests against racism and police brutality following the police killings of multiple African Americans. That just warms my little Federalist heart. People coming in to make their own decisions on their own safety rather than depending on the government agencies to do so. That warms me up right here. Absolutely does. All right, couple more. Twitter faces potential $250 million fine for inadvertently taking users' contact info for advertising. From Tim Pierce. Twitter may face a fine of up to $250 million for using phone numbers and emails from its users to target advertising, according to a new filing with the Federal Trade Commission. The social media giant submitted the regulatory filing with the FTC on Tuesday, estimating it could be fined by the federal government between $150 million and $250 million, according to CNN. The FTC alleged in a complaint given the company last month that Twitter used data provided for safety and security purposes for targeted advertising during periods between 2013 and 2019. In an October blog post, Twitter said it recently discovered that when you provided an email address for phone number for safety and security purposes, for example, two-factor authentication, this data may have been inadvertently been used for advertising purposes. On July 24th, the FTC announced that it had settled the case against Facebook over similar charges. Facebook agreed to pay the federal government $5 billion, the largest fine in FTC history. The filing comes after about 2 weeks after a 17-year-old and two accomplices allegedly hacked dozens of the most prominent... A 17-year-old? I missed that one. Hacked dozens of the most prominent accounts on Twitter, including people such as former President Obama, presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden, rapper Kanye West, and Tesla CEO Elon Musk. The hack also hit the brand accounts of businesses such as Apple and Uber. So, yeah. It's just the same thing. People were concerned about TikTok going out and selling out your data out to the CCP. Well, it looks like Twitter and Facebook have been doing so as well. If you're using any sort of social media, your data is being sold. I'm sorry. But Dorsey and Zuckerberg and Bezos, they all own Congress people so they can get away with it. All right. Last one. From USA Today, archived because they are fascists with ad blockers. Live-action Mulan is heading to Disney Plus in September, but there's a catch, from Brian Truitt. After many delays, Disney's much anticipated live action Mulan will be available for fans this fall via streaming. Disney announced Tuesday during an earnings call that Mulan will premiere September 4th. Via the Disney Plus streaming service, subscribers will be able to watch the film for $29.99. That's what I have to say to you charging extra for a service that we already have. Uh-oh. And my video ended on that note. So, thanks to everybody who came over on Instagram. Looks like we had a couple people pop in over there. Hopefully they'll check out the link up in my description and come on over to to the other side. But yeah, given that gesture was the end. All right. We see this as an opportunity to bring this incredible film to a broad audience currently unable to go to the movie theaters, while also further enhancing the value and attractiveness of a Disney Plus subscription. With this great content, Disney CEO Bob Chapek said on the call, "Given the rapid change in consumer behavior, we believe that it's more important than ever that we continue to grow our direct relationship to our customers." During the pandemic, Disney Plus has fast-tracked streaming releases for Pixar's Onward, Frozen 2, and Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker for fans stuck at home, while theatrical releases like Artemis Fowl, Hamilton, and The One and Only Ivan, coming August 21st, premiered on the streaming instead of heading to the big screen. Mulan, however, marks the first time Disney Plus has charged extra to subscribers for a new release. The price point is steep considering that other theatrical releases hit streaming platforms typically rent for $14.99 to $19.99. Yeah, no, I am not going to pay $30 to watch a movie in my home. It's not going to happen. I pay $16 to watch unlimited movies in my home a month. I'm not going to pay $30 extra to watch one movie in my home. I don't pay that much to watch a movie in a theater with a gigantic screen. So no, I'm not going to do it at home. No, absolutely not. And from what I saw on social media yesterday, and the reason that this came up to my attention was the fact that there are a lot of people that feel the same way. This is plus tax too, by the way. So no. And yes, some other people were saying, well, if you think that $30 is too much to pay for a movie, then you don't know what it is, because you'll have the snacks and you'll have the ticket and the snacks and everything else. Yeah, well, I don't have to buy snacks here. I can go to my fridge and get a healthier snack than what they're going to sell in the movie theater. So no, I am not going to spend $30 to watch a movie in my home. It's not going to happen. So that is going to be that. All right, and that's going to be it for the day for news here. And the last thing we do on Wednesday is something that I'm thankful for. So this week, I got a call. I went out on Monday. I went out and talked with my realtor a couple weeks ago because I'm considering a career change at this point. It's coming to a point where I like the job that I do. I really enjoy the job that I do. But between the money that they're paying me, the fact that they're piling on other people's jobs onto me, I have no time to get my own job done at this point. The amount of time that I spend there and the reward that I get back out of it. The fact of the matter is I could sit and play on my phone for the entire shift, or I could work as hard as I can for the entire shift, and it's not going to affect the amount that I get paid. And there doesn't appear to be room in the budget for a pay raise for me either on any of this. So I went out and, per recommendation, I was actually recommended by my personal realtor to go and work for a new company. I will be meeting on Monday with a local realtor in the area. I'm not going to disclose which realtor, obviously, because I don't disclose where I work currently. I will be going and talking to a local realtor about changing career paths and actually capitalizing on this flight that I think is going to start happening from places like Madison, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Chicago. I'm going to see a lot of flight coming out of these places, and I'm going to capitalize it. I'm going to go get my real estate license. Hopefully that'll free up some time where I can spend some more time with the other guys on the Freedom Scoop Network, because I'm definitely looking forward to that. Hopefully this frees up a little bit of time that I can build more out of my channel and build more of my audience, actually take some time and sit down with some of you guys and offer reward for the fact that maybe some of you guys will pay me through PayPal or Subscribestar in the near future. Maybe this will free up some capital where I can sit down and build an actual PC so we don't have to worry about PC crashes, because this little HP has been admirable, but its time is coming. I have worked this thing way too hard for what it was built for. So, yeah, there are a few things that are changing up in my life, and the fact that I have the opportunity and was personally recommended by a person who I would otherwise be competing against for customers warms me up, and it's something that I'm thankful for. I've made that much of an impression on the world that people would actually recommend me to do something like that. That's something that I'm thankful for, and I'm thankful for the fact that people would do that. So, that's going to be it for the day here. So we're going to head on out of here. I'm going to go throw some breakfast together and head on out to work, because I do still have to go there until something else changes in my life. But we will be back here tomorrow because we did gaming last night. So we'll be back here tomorrow with more contemporary and more news. It's been kind of a slow news week, but we can still fill up the show over an hour. So until tomorrow then, we will see you then. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.